Welcome to the History of the Bible, Episode 116, Philistines, Part 2. In the last episode, we talked about the Philistines and who they were as a people, looking at where they came from and what their culture looked like. Today, we're going to examine the individuals who make up the people. Much of it will be shaped by what they believe, as many societies operate it based on their collective beliefs. The Philistines' religion, before coming to the land of Canaan, is not known. Many religions during ancient times would often play off of each other. Each people group has a different name for the same deity. When the Philistines came to the land of Canaan, they picked up many of the Canaanites' belief. When the people groups moved, they would often bring their religion and beliefs with them, adopt the religion of the region, or adopt a combination of both. In ancient times, deities were often beings who embodied a force of nature or an aspect of nature. For example, the god of the sky, a god of the ocean, a god for growth of plants, a god or goddess for war, and a goddess for sexual passion. Some deities embodied the physical world, meaning, as an example, the Egyptians believed there was a god who ruled the Nile River. All that the god of the Nile River did was control the area of the Nile River. Therefore, when people groups traveled to a new location, they would assume the land was under the dominion of a deity who was already there. Often, this was referred to as a patron deity, whose sole responsibility was that area, region, or physical place. As mentioned before, wars were divine. This was seen as a deity that used its followers to attack another deity and its followers. The point was for the deity to take over the dominion of another deity. They would bring their beliefs with them, but they would also change their belief because a new land had a new god. Now, many religions have all-powerful gods who rule over all the other deities. Often, honor was paid to the all-powerful gods, but it was the patron of the deity of the land, region, or city whom the people would worship. This is what happened with the Philistines. They came into the region of the land of Canaan, and they took on many of the gods and goddesses of the Canaanite and the surrounding people groups. Baal, Astarte, Asherah, god and goddesses found in the Canaanite religion are also part of the deities the Philistines worshipped. However, the Philistines had one god they did seem to worship more than the others. That would be the god named Dagon. Dagon was not introduced to the land of Canaan by the Philistines. Rather, the Philistines were introduced to the god Dagon when they arrived in the land. Dagon is believed to be the god of vegetation, grain, and wheat. The name Dagon is close to the Hebrew word Dagan, which means grain. Dagon is said to have brought the invention of the plow to the people. Other portrayals of Dagon depict him as a storm god connected to the need for the rain to water the crops. The issue is that Baal is believed to have been the god of storms and fertility of the land. This is where the responsibility of a deity can come into play. Baal was the all-powerful ruler over the deities. He may have been responsible for the general rain and fertility of the land, whereas Dagon was responsible for bringing the rain that would help produce the crops that needed to sustain the people. Dagon is not portrayed in a way we would think he would be, especially since he is thought of being the god of grain and crops. Dagon is often presented as a fish god. The image of Dagon shows him as having a merman body type, having a human figure from the waist up, and below the waist is the body of a fish. A very controversial image, as Dagon is supposed to be the god of the growth of grain. Yet, he has the body of a fish. Jewish rabbis over the centuries have had difference of opinion on the situation. Some point out the Hebrew word for fish is dag, tying the god to be the god of fish, although Dagon means grain. Other scholars argue that Dagon was originally not a fish god, but rather a god of grain. However, as the worship of Dagon was adopted by the Philistines, who are believed to be part of the sea people, the god started being falsely portrayed as a fish god by other nations and people groups. The icon of a part human, part fish was not to associate the god with fish, but rather the god of the sea people. In the 5 main cities of the Philistines, there are temples built and dedicated to Dagon. In 2 different temples, there has been discovered an abnormal number of plant species inside the temple. Scholars believe the Philistines had nature and agriculture as a major part of their worship. This would connect Dagon, the god of grain, to the temple of worship of nature and agriculture. Later on, the Greeks would adopt a very similar style of worship for their goddess Hera, the mother goddess. The plants within the temples were found to be for medicine, food, decorations, incense, alcohol, and psychoactive drugs when processed. The processing for all these plants were done inside the temple, which would then be used as offerings to their god. Nature and agriculture were an important part of the Philistines and their religion. From the god they worshipped to the items they offered in sacrifices and offerings were all around the crops they grew. The story behind Dagon, in terms of mythology, can be confusing. Deities' origins and stories in ancient times had a way of changing from place to place, people to people, and even city to city. The way deities were worshipped was different. Just in the way the type of deity regarding the responsibility changed through the generations. Other deities would morph into other gods and gain a second name. As mentioned, Dagon was already known in the land of Canaan, although he is not mentioned often as being worshipped by the Canaanites. Some records state Dagon was a father of Baal. Baal was the main god worshipped by the Canaanites. In the religion of the Canaanites, there was the god El, who was the main deity from whom all things came. Then there was Baal, who took the role of divine ruler over all the other deities. Supposedly, some records indicate that between El and Baal was Dagon. Those records are mostly found north of the land of Canaan, near the Euphrates River. Other records indicate El and Dagon are similar and could be the same god. The worship of Dagon as a god was centered mainly in the Syrian region, north of the land of Canaan. It would be here that Dagon was worshipped as the god king, whereas in Canaan, it was El and Baal. The god Dagon first appears in archaeological records around 2500 BC, as mentioned, in the Syrian region north of the land of Canaan. By 2300 BC, Dagon was worshipped as the Lord God of gods. However, in 1300 BC, Dagon would fall to being the third in line of deities worshipped by the city of Ugarit, only mentioned as the father of Baal. El and Baal were the main gods worshipped. As time passed, the god would become many things to many different people. He would be a god of the underworld. He would be creator of all. and he would be a god of war. As for the Philistines, Dagon would be their main god whom they worshipped. As far as the Philistines were concerned, Dagon was the father of Baal. Therefore, Dagon was worshipped over Baal. Although he was not the only deity the Philistines worshipped, the other two main gods were named Baal-zebub and Ashtoreth. Baal-zebub may have been the common deity called Baal in the land of Canaan, but because Dagon was seen by the Philistines as the father of Baal, Dagon was worshipped over him. Although in the city of Ekron, Baal-zebub may have been worshipped over Dagon. Baal-zebub is directly translated to mean Lord of the Flies, although he would come to be known as Lord of the Devils, Lord of the High Place, Lord of the Heavenly Mansion, and Lord of the Earth. The reason for all the translations is due to Zebub could be a city or a location on top of a high place. Many scholars believe the translation Lord of the Flies was a derogatory term created to put down the god of the Philistines. Instead, scholars believe it should mean Lord of the High Place. Although the translation of Lord of the Flies could be accurate, if the belief is that Baal-zebub was Lord of the Flies, thus he controlled them. He then would also control the things that brought flies, and in ancient times, this would often be plagues. Therefore, Baal-zebub could come to be known as the god who controls plagues and diseases. As for the translation of being referred to as Lord of the Devils, this came much later in the history of Christianity, after the death of Jesus. In the New Testament era, Baal-zebub was thought of as the prince of demons. The root for this translation in the New Testament came from a Jewish tradition of Baal-zebub leading heavenly angels and was associated with the planet Venus, which means in Greek, evening star. Thus, the assumption of Lucifer, who would become Satan, being the morning star was made. Some state Baal-zebub and Satan are one and the same, or Baal-zebub is a higher-ranking demon, a demon whose job is to bring destruction through tyrants and to inspire men to worship demons that bring war. Going back to Baal-zebub, the god of the Philistines, he was known to be worshipped by them. For what? It isn't known. He is, though, a god who is part of the Philistines' religion. The other deity was Ashtoreth. In other religions, Ashtoreth was another name for Astarte. She was the goddess of war, love, sex, and hunting. Her Greek counterpart was Aphrodite, and in the Canaanite religion, she was associated with Baal. Astarte would become a very popular goddess throughout the Mediterranean Sea, playing a major role in many of the ancient empires and people groups. The reason why she gained more popularity was because she was a goddess of love and sexual desires. The main city Astarte was worshipped was in the city of Ashkelon. Her worship was often associated with sacred prostitution. Though she is sometimes portrayed as a goddess of war, she is more commonly known as the goddess of sex and fertility. As the goddess of fertility, she would come to be known in some regions as the Lady of Heaven, portraying her as the mother of all. Thus, for the Philistines, she would be Dagon's partner in many depictions. As many of the temples dedicated to Dagon contained plants for their offering and worship, Astarte's temples showed their worship through dances, prostitution, and animal sacrifices. She would be worshipped much the same way throughout the Mediterranean Sea. In the Canaanite religion, she was the partner of Baal, and her reach of influence would go far beyond Baal's. The deities worshipped by the Philistines were a part of their life. Throughout the 5 major cities, the Philistines built numerous temples to honor their gods. This is the way the Philistines were worshipped as a people. As for their day-to-day, much of their economy came through trade, but it wasn't the only way the people made a living. In addition to metalworks, agricultural and herds made up the livelihood of the Philistines. Thus, the worship of Dagon would be used to help bring a blessing on the crops they were planting. Dagon is famous for being the god who invented the plow for the people to use to plant their crops. Plus, the worship of Dagon and Astarte, the goddess of fertility, not just humans, would be used to bless the herds of the Philistines. Herds such as sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs. Pigs were unpopular in the land of Canaan and the surrounding regions until the Philistines brought them into the land. Interestingly, the DNA found in the pigs are to match closely with the pigs found in Europe during this time. This is a people group that would be an issue in Israel's history. Despite being a major issue for the tribes and later for the nation of Israel, the population of the Philistines was not particularly large. It is believed that the total population of the Philistines would reach 30,000 at its peak. The people were never meant to be a nation. Rather, they were settled in the land from a naval raiding party. Though they were small in population, they were a people who were well advanced in technology and battle tactics. A people who would continue to wage war with those around them. When the giants fled from the Israelites when they first came into the land of Canaan, they would seek refuge in the cities of the Philistines. Thus, they will come back at another time in history. As for now, this prepares us for the time of Samson as judge. Due to the Israelites falling away from the Lord, he would use the Philistines to bring oppression onto the Israelites. The oppression would last for 40 years. So join us next time in episode 117 as we begin the story of Samson as a judge in Israel and his encounters with the Philistines. Until next time, remember that you are loved, special, and worthwhile.